the scales are gone. Fins are still on, but fins could be gone. Tail could be gone, head could be gone, but this is a dressed fish. I do like using my flexible boning knife for this. I could use many varieties though. I could use more of a straight blade. I could use a longer blade. Some of you guys have seen the curved fillet blade. Those curved fillet blades are usually considered boning knives, and I don't usually use them on fish. That's my boning knife or my fillet knife choice, flexible. Now, you can do this head on or head off. Just because I like doing head off and showing you the anatomy a little bit more, I'm going to do that, but I wouldn't have to. But the trick is to identify where I'm going to take that head off. I want to come right behind the pectoral fin, and again, just like I did the salmon, I want to cut way up behind the head because the meat comes all the way up behind the head. Now for you guys to cut the head off of this guy, you could go straight down through there, but then you're almost crushing that fish a little bit. So what I like to do is go to the other side, make the identical cut, then go around the back side up to the head. So my knife should end up in the same spot as it did from the first cut. And now I can bend this backwards, like break his head off backwards. There's a nice little separation there that I can now get my knife through very easily. So I didn't have to run through it with my knife, and I didn't have to take any chance of damaging that bottom fillet. There's my beautiful little head. So these are such small little commas that I've never harvested these out, and I'm sure they'd be tasty. It would make a nice stock, but I really want to clean out any of that brown muck and blood or anything else before I use it for stock. Next step for me on this one now, I'm going to do the up and over method, which means as soon as I hit the rib cage right here, I'm going to come up and then through the skin. So I'm going to be leaving this belly flap on the fish and the bones on the fish. I'll be taking out a few bones with the pin bones, and I'll have to remove those on the cutting board. What you're going to do, and you can see the spine right there. In the spine, there's bones that run up underneath the spine here also, and that's going to be my guide. So I cut down through the skin to the spine, and I want to make this cut all the way down the backbone. Opening this guy up all the way down to that spine. So there's the inside. Now what I've hit is the spine. I just cut deep enough to get to the spine, but not cutting it straight off like I would the salmon. Had I done the salmon that way, or this way with salmon, I would have cut this all the way off, the belly and everything, gone straight through all those bones. What I'm going to do now is free up the tail piece. So what I've got down here is I've got the spine. I just need to go up and over the spine and out through the belly. Now I cut down the spine again. So here's my fillet. Here's the spine. I cut back up towards the bones that create the rib cage. And now I've got this fillet almost freed up. Cutting a little bit of the rib cage at the backside where those bones were. Now what they call the up and over method, because those bones that I'm running into right now are the rib bones. And I'm just going to come up and over the top of those bones. I'm just letting my knife follow the contour of the bones. Those are the bones that I'm using to run my knife right up against. And when I get to the end of those bones, I'm at the skin, and that's just right where I cut through. There's my fillet. So what stayed behind are the rib bones and a couple of the pin bones. So I just went straight to the spine on that first cut, all the way down. Made sure I was all the way to the spine, then I turned my fish this way. I went in there, over the spine, out the belly, came out this way with it to free up the bottom half of that fillet. Then I moved forward while lifting the fillet up, moved forward until I hit these bones. And that's what stopped my knife. And that's when this whole fillet was freed up here and freed up there. And all I had to do was continue to get to that rib cage and go up and over, hence the name up and over method. As soon as I get to the edge of those bones, cut right through the skin all the way down.
So all that's left in that like front piece is just more bones?
And belly meat.
Okay.
So there's a little thin strip of meat right here that is, it's all meat, but it's really hard to get to. And I can't really cook this with that at the same time, because this will be overcooked by the time that's cooked, so I don't really cook them together.
Okay.
There's so little meat there that it's not worth it much. Now there is a method on this that I would take this all the way up and over, and I could show you that next if we get a chance. So next step.
Could we cut the whole thing and then just trim off those bones and
Not
pieces?
this time.
Okay.
You could with this fish, but I want you to learn this method. So, I'm gonna do the same thing. Now, if I was left-handed, I could do it like this, right? But now the fish is on the other side, it's a little more difficult. So instead of starting from this side of the head, I can do all the same cuts. I just have to do it from this side of the fish. So I am still cutting it right along that spine. I'm still cutting it right down to the spine. I'm still going to do this same cut where I go up over the spine, out through the belly, to take off the bottom part of the fillet. I'm still going to move forward until I hit the bones of the rib cage, which I just hit. So there's my fillet. Freed up at the tail, freed up at the tip, and now I'm going to hit these bones and do the same thing. Come up and over. For me, it's easier to turn it around and come this way with it. If I feel any bones in here, I want to stay on the inside of those bones. Right to the edge of them. And then cut through the skin itself, right where on the edge of those bones. Here's my second fillet. So, same little piece left behind. Pretty close to that spine all the way down. You'll notice the second half, the second fillet you take out is always going to be more difficult because there's not that other fillet underneath it pressing it up. So it kind of is going to be at a little bit more odd orientation for cutting it. But basically that's what you're looking for to do. So that's the next step. Now, up here is going to be a few bones left, and I have to feel them with my fingertips. This side I got out pretty well, but this side I still have a piece. But the first thing I want to do is take the skin off and take off any extra fringe. Like this little muscle right there isn't much good to me. That little belly flap that I left on there, I'll take off. I'll show you on this one. Same thing. That little belly flap, cut that off. Cut this little fringe of muscle off that's not doing anything for me. I'm feeling, using my fingertips, I'm feeling for any bones that I might have left in there. Bones you're only going to feel right up here where I cut through or near any bones. You won't see any bones anywhere else. Now I'm ready to skin it. So the method for skinning fish is always going to be pretty similar no matter what fish you're doing. You need to have it pretty close to the front of your board, because I need to be able to keep this knife flat on the board. If my fish is way up here, can my knife be flat on the board? Physically impossible unless I can put my knife on the edge of the board like that. So I can't fillet a fish up here. I got to be down here at the bottom of the board. And I'm going to always start on the tail side and move to the head side. Cut down to the flesh. Don't cut through the flesh to the skin, but don't cut through the skin. And now I turn the knife around and bring bring it backwards. Other trick on this, I have to be holding on to the skin with my left hand as I'm moving right, and I'm keeping it pretty tight. You'll see that as that loosens from the skin, it stretches out. But if I wasn't holding tight on here, look what happens. Nothing happens. I have to have that resistance against the knife for that to work. And that's what's going to end up coming out of it. Left nothing on the skin whatsoever. So I'll do that on this one. Right up here near the front of the board, tail to head, cut down to the skin. I'm sacrificing a little bit of that meat so I have something to hold on to. Go back the other direction. Now on this, you notice that my knife is not completely flat on the board, but it's not at a super strong angle. If I was at that angle, I'd cut through the skin. So I'm getting a really minor angle. And I'm gradually just doing little sawing actions and pulling the skin very tight at the same time. And that's what I'll end up with, completely clean. You just gotta really concentrate on keeping that knife flat and on the board. If I let this go up or this go up, I'm not gonna be leaving skin or leaving meat on the skin. So keep that real flat, straight along. Always pulling tight as you go. Now the last thing to do on this one, it was where I had a few of those bones left in. After I get the skin off, it's really easy to remove those bones just by cutting underneath them and out. Then I use my fingers to feel for any bones that might be left in there. I got them all. Put these guys right back there. Now for this one, this will be my grilled piece. I'm just going to trim a little bit of that tail meat off to make it a little bit easier to grill. There's that one. And this will be my poached piece. So I want to trim him up also, mostly so that he'll fit in that 8-inch saute pan. There's a little piece of fat that was held on that kind of holds onto the side there that you just peels right off. Now I'm going to trim the tail off of this one also, just so it'll fit nicely in that pan over there. So there's my two fish. No bones, no scales. Any questions so far?
We recommend if we're trimming the fish meat that we always go more for the tail end.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because that's going to be your least benefit or your least desirable part,
Okay.
and this fatter part is a lot nicer for us. So definitely trim the tail first. I'll bring this guy on over here.